Let's paint this dragon and talk a bit about art block and losing motivation. So, no one has ever actually called me a lazy artist. It's kind of a label I unkindly put on myself sometimes when I feel like I'm not doing enough as an artist. I think I put myself down because when I look at other artists, I usually feel like they are much more skilled and productive, and that their art is much cooler than mine. But I know that a lot of that is in my own head. In fact, sometimes I get compliments on my art about how detailed it is, which is always very surprising to me because I feel like I don't have the patience to be very detailed when I paint. But I guess it really shows that we ourselves are our biggest critics and that other people might not notice or feel the same way that we do about our own work or about ourselves. I don't know how it is for you, but for me, my creativity and creative desire, so to say, comes and goes a lot in waves. I can feel very motivated for a couple of days, but then comes days or weeks when I don't want to paint or draw at all. The days that I don't paint, I usually feel very guilty and bad about myself. I feel like I am not doing enough, like I could be working harder, like I'm not productive enough. If you feel the same, then at least you're not alone. I would say that my technique and art style are very much affected by how I approach art and the amount of patience and time that I'm able to spend on a painting before I lose interest or motivation. If you struggle with something similar, then I really recommend experimenting with different mediums, canvas sizes, and art styles. For me, watercolor and mixed media works very well because it's very free and forgiving. Watercolor is a medium that almost has a will on its own. It's very loose and fun to work with, and you don't always have to plan so much, and in fact you can't always control the way that the paint is behaving, so it can make for some interesting and fun results. In the cases that I want to add more detail or texture, I usually go in with another medium such as pencil or markers or pens. I will admit that sometimes it makes me feel a bit bad because I almost feel like I'm cheating in some way because, well, I have to use different mediums together and I can't just stick to one. At this point, it's becoming sort of my style in my artwork. And I think it's important to realize that as much as it is important to experiment with different mediums and approaches, not all of them will be equally fitting or enjoyable for you specifically. So try not to compare yourself to other artists too much. I know it's hard, but do your best. Or you'll find yourself very demotivated rather than inspired by their work. As I mentioned before, I think high expectations and perfectionism are some of the reasons that I sometimes find myself unable to finish or even start a painting or drawing. And I decided to break things down into 5 main points or tips that I want to share with you, which might help you if you are finding yourself in that situation. And also just things that I try to stick to in order to get out of art block or give myself more motivation to start painting again. So first of all is consistency. Sometimes getting started is the hardest part, and there are times when you sort of have to force yourself a little bit, at least through the first minutes or so, until you get into it and realize that it's actually quite enjoyable. Try to set aside a time during the day or the week. Maybe put on a timer for 10 minutes or so and set it as a goal to draw something, anything, during those minutes. Then when the timer runs out, you can choose if you want to continue or if you want to stop. Second, and this is related to the first point, is use drawing exercises or challenges as a way to get yourself started. So it can be quite daunting to start a new drawing, and sometimes you might feel like you don't know what to draw. This tip can also help you if you have high expectations for your art, as these are usually very low effort and quite practice oriented. You need to try to be more comfortable with making mistakes if you want your creativity to flow. Because if you plan too much or you get too stuck in your head and get afraid of messing up, it can really stop you from continuing a piece of art or drawing and painting in general. I'm speaking from experience. I'm actually planning to do a video featuring some drawing exercises that you can do, which can help you a bit during art block or when you don't know what to draw, or just help improve your art or motivation to do art in general. Maybe even help you fill your sketchbook if that's something you're struggling with. However, if you don't want to wait for that video, which I understand, there are lots of books and other videos where you can find such. And if you're looking for a challenge which really requires you to be consistent, then there are a few monthly drawing prompts that you could look up. For example, Inktober is very popular, and there's also this challenge called 100 Faces Challenge, which is something you can find on YouTube and on Pinterest. I personally was not able to completely finish any of those, but I did find them quite enjoyable and a good way to get started or find something new to draw. So could give it a go even if you don't finish the whole thing. And of course everyone is different, so it might even be fun and good to do the whole thing for you, who knows. You can also always adjust it so that if you don't want to draw every day, maybe you can draw something once a week or draw many things in one sitting. That's what I did. I did the 100 Faces Challenge in the way that I would do 5 faces a few times a week or something. So it was not every day, but that's how I had to do it with my studies to balance it out. So just do whatever fits your schedule if you feel like you can't draw every day. My third tip is to add novelty to your art or art process. So do something a little bit different, a little new. Be it a new place where you sit and draw. Maybe you could even go out and draw. Or you could try a new medium or a new drawing subject, or just try to imitate some style that's not completely familiar to you. Or try mixing different mediums together. For example, I tried using watercolor and oil paints together in one painting once, and it was unusual but quite nice. Something that I love to do is make a sketch and then just layer lots of different mediums on top of it, like inks, watercolors, oil pastels, pencils, whatever I have. And just go into it with zero expectations and just do it for the sake of trying how different mediums behave together. It can look a bit funny sometimes, but it's very low pressure, and I never really find myself unsatisfied with the results because I have such low expectations, or because I have no real image of the results in my head. I also found that the sketchbook can play a big role in my motivation to draw in it. I don't want to advocate for unfinished sketchbook. I know it's a big problem a lot of us have. Anyway, I found that if I don't like the size or paper of a sketchbook, then I almost never draw in it. So if that sounds like something you're struggling with, then maybe try drawing on loose paper for a while and try making simple and quick things in your sketchbook, like collages or scrapbook pages. You could even paste your loose paper drawings into it. Just make quick studies, drawing exercises, things like that. I know it's a bit painful to have a sketchbook that you don't like or that you like too much so that you are scared to use it, but I think it's good to have the habit of finishing sketchbooks and also just art pieces in general, because you learn a lot throughout the process. But keep in mind that that might be the reason that you're not motivated, and then make sure to buy some other brand next time. I also have a video about starting a new sketchbook where you might find some ideas on what to draw and like how to feel it. Number 4 is for you that are struggling to finish paintings. So following up on the previous thought, some people, me included, can have issues with finishing paintings which they have already started. And I have some tips for that too. So you can think of a few reasons you might struggle with finishing a painting. You might be feeling like it doesn't look like you imagined, so you feel like giving up, or you might be getting bored because you took on way more than you thought you could handle, or because you just lost the motivation that you had from the start, which like inspired you to start it. I think that can happen if you're making something big, like have a great idea at the start, feel really motivated and excited, and then as you're working on it, you kind of forget why you started it in the first place and like what inspired you. Altogether, it's really up to you if you want to push through it, come back to it later, or abandon it altogether. Those are all fine, but just keep in mind that chances are that if you abandon it, you might never finish it unless you really force yourself to a little bit. And for that, I would say, see if you can change your idea up a little bit. So sometimes it might actually be worth starting over altogether, or just to like let go of the expectations and use it as an opportunity to experiment with new techniques and mediums. If you feel like you're not too stuck on the original idea, it can be nice to just like be like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna like experiment on this painting instead. Just let your creative side run wild for a little and paint without thinking too much. Also, try to think about what it might have been that made you lose interest. If it's the subject, the medium, the level of detail, or just the size of the canvas, there might be something that you're struggling with, or that you're not finding enjoyable or too overwhelming. If you still like your idea, but it's the results that you're unhappy with, then what you could do is try to look into other people's art processes, or like, speed paints, because that often helps me realize that the starting stages of a painting can look pretty bad. But if you stick through it, you can find yourself with something nice anyway, even if it might not feel like it. Very often, after a little bit of rendering, it goes from that ugly stage into something a bit more detailed, and it can turn out pretty good. So I've learned my lesson on that, and I think learning when to give up is something that kind of comes with practice. And I think that if you are newer to creating art, then it's worth to try to stick to finishing your paintings, because like I said before, you learn a lot when you do things like fully. If you just do the like beginning parts, like the sketching, maybe color blocking and stuff, then yeah, you get better at that, but you will miss out on like the last stages, adding details and like things like that. So keep that in mind if you are going into it with the intention to improve. Then last but not least, do take breaks. It's okay to have times when you don't draw or paint. Art is supposed to be fun, so if you truly are not enjoying it, then there's not much you can do. Focus on other things, and inspiration will come back to you eventually. One of the biggest inspirations to art is actually to go out and do things, experience things, be it things like just going out in nature or hanging out with friends, or it could be things like going to movies or art museums, for example. So seeing things outside, meeting other people, and seeing other people's art are often things that motivate me to capture what I experienced and share it with others. So don't be afraid to go out and enjoy other hobbies if you feel like you are a bit stuck in the art side. Sometimes something as simple as a pattern on a rock can inspire a whole drawing for me. So don't be afraid to go out and experience things and find inspiration elsewhere. Try new hobbies and things that might not be related to art altogether. That's totally fine and it's good for you. If you don't go out and see those things and experience the world outside of the little room or studio where you usually create, then you will miss out on a lot of sources of inspiration and you won't be able to paint the world that you might want to capture. So I hope that helps. I hope that this video gave you some comfort. Know that you're not alone. You are not a lazy artist, like I call myself sometimes. It's okay to take breaks. It's okay to not be fully motivated. And there are things you can do to overcome it, and you will overcome it eventually. Don't overthink things too much. And take care of yourself. Thank you for watching. Bye.